Baby, come sit with me a minute. Let me tell you something real. There are things in this life you don't ever put down. Not in your hands, not in a bag you can set by the door when you get tired. No, you carry them right here. Pressed up against your chest. Like an old letter you done read so many times, the fold's done gone soft. And even when you stop reading it, you still know every word by heart. I've lived 63 years. That's a long time to be carrying things. I've seen Sunday dinners full of laughter, and I've sat in hospital rooms where the silence felt louder than anything I ever heard. I've blown out birthday candles, and I've stood at gravesides watching people I loved disappear into the ground. And I have loved, oh, I have loved. Loved people who held me just as tight as I held them. And I've loved people who took that love, like it was nothing. Like it didn't cost them a thing to receive it, and didn't cost me a thing to give. But listen to me, baby, it always costs you something. Always. My name is Dorothy Mae Washington. Most folks call me Dot. My grandbabies call me Nana. And what I'm about to tell you, I ain't never told it all the way through. Not to my pastor. Not to my sister. Not to nobody who knows my face. Because some truths, they too heavy to carry in front of people who think they know you. Sometimes you need a stranger. Somebody who can just sit still and listen. Not interrupt. Not fix it. Not look at you sideways and say, well, you had a part in this too. Oh, I know what part one played. I done had years to sit with that. So just listen to me, all right? Just, let me tell it. I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. Third of 5 children. House full of noise, rules, and expectations. My mama, Estelle, she was a church woman all the way through. I'm talking about the kind of woman who ironed her Bible covers. Not just carried the word, respected it. Lived it. Every word she spoke to God, she meant it. My father, James, he worked at the plant for 31 years. Never missed a week bringing home his check. Every Friday, same thing, he'd walk in, set that envelope down on the kitchen table, and not take a single dollar for himself until the family was handled. That's the kind of man he was. We didn't have much. But we had order. We had pride. We had dignity. My mama used to tell me, a poor house can still be a clean house. And baby, she wasn't just talking about the floors. I left Birmingham when I was 19. Got on a Greyhound bus with a cardboard suitcase, $40 in my pocket, and my cousin Renee's address written on the inside of my wrist in blue ink. I remember looking down at that address every few minutes like it might disappear. I was scared, and I was free. And let me tell you something, sometimes those two feelings feel exactly the same. Cincinnati is where I met Robert Washington. Lord. I still remember the first time I saw that man. Tall. Brown-skinned. Quiet in a way that made you lean in a little closer. Like he was always thinking about something deeper than what was being said out loud. He wasn't flashy. Didn't need to be. He worked in heating and cooling, started his own little business, built it up steady, one job at a time. And the way he treated me. Baby, he treated me like I was rare. Not perfect, he knew better than that. But rare. Like something worth taking care of. We got married in 1983. Small wedding. Nothing fancy. But it was full of love. My mama came up from Birmingham in her best dress. And before the ceremony, she pulled Robert aside. I didn't know what she said until years later. She told him, "My daughter has a big heart. Don't you ever use that against her." And Robert, he promised her he wouldn't. That man kept that promise every single day of his life. We built our life slow. Brick by brick. First 4 years, we lived in a little 2-bedroom apartment on the east side. I worked at the hospital as a unit secretary. Robert was out there building his client list, one furnace at a time. We ate a lot of rice and beans back then. A whole lot of "we'll get it next month." But we were together. A team. That's what we were. A team. By 1989, we had just enough saved to buy a house. The house on Elm Street. Now listen. I need you to understand something about that house. It wasn't just wooden walls and a mortgage payment. That house meant something. It meant two people who started with nothing, built something real. With their hands. With sacrifice. With faith in each other and in God. 3 bedrooms. Quiet street. Wide front porch. And a big old oak tree out back that Robert swore had been there longer than both of us put together. I loved that house the moment I stepped inside. Robert painted it himself. Warm cream siding, deep green shutters. I planted red roses along the walkway because my mama always said red roses meant you were serious about where you planted yourself. And I was serious. I wasn't going nowhere. We raised our children in that house. Marcus came first. 1985, he was still little when we moved into Elm Street, but that's the home he grew up knowing. Then Denise, my baby girl, came in 1990. I brought her home wrapped in a yellow blanket I knitted myself. And then Kevin. Lord, that boy surprised us all. Came along in 1994 like God said, "You ain't done yet." 3 children. 1 home. 1 family. Hold that picture, baby. Hold it tight. Because everything that came after grew out of that. Marcus, my firstborn. Now if you got children, you understand what that means. That first one, you learning how to be a mother with them. Every fear, every doubt, every question about whether you're good enough, it lives right there in that first child. He was a serious boy. Smart, too. Reading before kindergarten. By 2nd grade, his teacher called me in and said, "Mrs. Washington, your son needs more challenge." I went home and told Robert. Robert got real quiet. Sat there thinking. Then he said, "We have to make sure we don't fail him." And baby, we didn't. We worked ourselves tired making sure we didn't. Private school. Extra shifts. No vacations. Every dollar stretched and counted. Marcus graduated top of his class. Full scholarship to Ohio State. Then Northwestern for his MBA. By 30, he was in Chicago working at a financial firm, making more money than Robert and I had ever seen. And I was proud. Don't get that twisted, I was proud of my son. But somewhere along the way, something in him changed. It didn't happen all at once. That's the tricky part. It never does. It was little things. A tone. A pause. A way of speaking that felt different. And you tell yourself, he's busy. He's stressed. He's just adjusting. You make excuses. Oh, you make so many excuses when it's your child. Denise, she was different. Quiet like her daddy, but stubborn like me. And that combination, it sees things. She stayed close. Married a good man, Gerald. Had 2 babies. Lived 20 minutes away and showed up every Sunday like clockwork. She was the one who started asking questions. "Mama, you heard from Marcus?" And I'd say, "He called last week." And she'd look at me, real careful. Like she was holding something back. Kevin, my youngest. That boy had Robert's eyes and my heart. Which meant he felt everything too deeply and didn't always know what to do with it. He called me every single day. Every day. Even if it was just, "Hey mama, I love you." Now listen, that matters. Remember that. Then came spring of 2018. That's when everything changed. Robert got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I don't have words strong enough for that moment. Sitting in that doctor's office, hearing somebody tell you the person you built your whole life with is slipping away. The doctor talked. Used words like treatment options and quality of life. I heard him, but I didn't hear him. All I could think was, God, I'm not ready. Robert was 60. We had plans. We were finally talking about slowing down. Taking that trip to New Orleans we'd been putting off for years. Sitting on that porch in the evenings, doing nothing and being happy about it. But life, don't always honor your plans. By July, we knew the treatments weren't working like we hoped. By October, Robert came home for the last time. We put a hospital bed in the living room. I slept beside him every night. In that recliner. 6 weeks straight. Held his hand. Read to him. Prayed with him. Played his music, Stevie Wonder, Al Green, the songs he loved. I told him stories. Made him laugh, even when it hurt him. He told me it was worth the pain. And I believed him. Robert Washington left this world on a Tuesday morning in December. Winter light coming through the window. My hand in his. Denise at his feet. Kevin standing in the doorway trying his best not to break. Marcus. Marcus wasn't there. He was in Denver. Said he had a conference. Said the timing was bad. Said, Mama. Dad would understand. I didn't argue. Grief don't leave room for arguments. But I remember standing at that graveside, cold wind cutting through my coat, watching them lower my husband into the ground. And something settled in my spirit. I thought, this ain't just an ending. This is the beginning of something. Something I'm not going to be able to stop. I just didn't know yet how far it was going to go. After the funeral, people show up, and then they fade away. That's how it goes. The food stops coming. The calls slow down. Life moves on for everybody else. But you still there. In a house that smells like the person you lost. Their coffee mug still sitting where they left it. Their glasses folded on the nightstand. Denise came every day that first month. Kevin stayed close, fixing things, checking on me. My sister Pearl came up from Birmingham. The church showed love. Marcus, he stayed 4 days. Before he left, he sat down at my kitchen table. That same table we built a life around. And he looked at me, calm, composed, and said, Mama, we need to talk about the house. I looked at him. What about it? He folded his hands, the way he does when he's already made up his mind. You're here alone now. The house is big. The upkeep, it's a lot. And the value of the property has gone up. This is an asset. An asset. Baby, my husband wasn't even in the ground 2 weeks. And my son was talking to me about assets. I told him, Marcus, I'm not selling my house. He nodded like he expected that. Said, just think about it. Then he hugged me, told me he loved me, and walked out that door. And I let it go. I told myself, it's grief. He don't know how to handle this. I gave him grace. I gave him love. I gave him every benefit of every doubt. Because he was my child. But listen to me, baby. That wasn't concern. That wasn't grief. That was the first move. And I didn't see it yet. But my son? He already had a plan. Baby, before I go any further, I need you to hear me clearly. I am not a foolish woman. I didn't make it 63 years in this world by not paying attention. I grew up in a house with 4 siblings, where money was tight and feelings ran high. You learn real quick in a place like that how to read a room, how to hear what ain't being said, how to watch people's eyes instead of just listening to their words. And then I spent over 20 years working in a hospital. Listen to me. I have seen people at their absolute rawest. I've sat in waiting rooms at 2 in the morning with families holding their breath. I've watched people unravel, confess, lie, hold on, let go. I've seen exactly who folks are when everything is on the line. So I know people. I know how they move when they're hiding something. I know how their voice stays steady but their eyes go just a little flat. I know the difference between concern and calculation. So when I tell you I didn't see what was coming, that don't mean I was blind. It means I was a mother. And a mother's love, baby, it comes with a blind spot built right into it. Deep. Stubborn. You keep seeing the child they used to be. You keep reaching for that little boy who used to fall asleep on your chest. That's not weakness. But I won't lie to you, it cost me. After the new year, Marcus started calling more. January. February, rolling into March. At first, I was grateful. I really was. I thought maybe losing his father had softened something in him. Opened something up. He'd call on Sunday evenings. How you doing, Mama? You need anything? How's the house holding up? And I'd tell him, I'm all right, baby. I'm managing. But after a while, I started noticing something. Every conversation had a shape to it. Didn't matter where it started, it always circled back to the same place. The house. The upkeep. The finances. The value of the property. What I was planning to do with it. I'd say, Marcus, the house is fine. And he'd say, real smooth, real careful, Mama, I just want to make sure you're protected. Protected. That word started to sit different with me after a while. Didn't feel like protection anymore. Felt like something else wearing a nice coat. Then one day in February, he brought up a name. Carla Green. Said it casual, like it just came to him. Mama, I've got a colleague, Carla Green. She's a real estate attorney. Estate planning, trusts, all that. Sharp woman. Might be good for you to talk to her. Just information. No pressure. I said, Marcus, I already have a lawyer. I know, Mama, but Howard's general practice. Carla specializes in this. Just want to make sure everything is structured right, for your protection. There it was again. I didn't say yes. But I didn't say no the way I should have. And listen, sometimes not saying no is all the permission somebody needs. A few weeks later, Denise called me. Now Denise, she don't waste words when something's bothering her. She gets quiet first. Then she says your name like she's placing something heavy down. Mama. I said, what is it, baby? She asked, has Marcus been talking to you about the house? I told her everything. The calls. The questions. The lawyer. All of it. She went quiet. Then she said, Mama. Gerald ran into somebody from Marcus's firm. And they said Marcus been talking about the Elm Street house. Not casually. Like it's part of something. I sat down right where I was standing. Talking about it how? Like it's going to be available. Like it's already in motion. Baby. I wish I could put that feeling into words for you. It wasn't just anger. Anger is clean. It moves through you fast. What I felt was like the ground under me shifted just a little. Like something I thought was solid, wasn't. I said, Denise, your father hasn't even been gone 3 months. She said, I know, Mama. We stayed on the phone a long time that night. And before we hung up, she said something that stayed with me. Mama, don't accuse him of anything you can't prove. But be careful. Be real careful. I told her I would be. And I believed I was. March came. And with it, Marcus showed up. Called earlier that week, said he was coming to town. Just to check on you, he said. Help out around the house. I said all right. And baby, I still cooked for him. Pot roast. Green beans. Cornbread. His favorites. Because that's what a mother does. Even when something in her spirit is standing up straight and watching, her hands still move in love. He came in Friday evening. Hugged me. Walked through the house, touching things, looking around. But this time, I was watching him. Not like a mother watching her son. Like a woman watching a man. Saturday morning, we sat at the kitchen table. Drank coffee. Talked about work, about Chicago, about some woman he was seeing. For a moment, it almost felt normal. Almost. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. Baby, the moment I saw that folder, something in me dropped. He set it down so gently. Like it was nothing. Mama, I had Carla draw up some documents. Just an estate plan. It puts the house in a living trust. Protects it. Makes everything easier later. All it needs is your signature. I didn't touch it. I said, who's the trustee? He said, well, I am. As the eldest. It just makes sense, given my background. And the beneficiaries? He paused. Just a little. But I saw it. It would be divided. Among the three of us. Equally? Another pause. Smaller. But I saw that too. Mama, there are considerations, tax, management. Marcus, I said, real calm, show me. He opened the folder. Turned to the page. Pointed. 50% to Marcus. 25 to Denise. 25 to Kevin. I sat there, looking at those numbers. In my house. The house I was still living in. The house his father and I built with our hands and our sacrifices. 50% to the son who wasn't even there when his father took his last breath. I closed that folder. Pushed it back to him. I am not signing this. And baby, his face changed. Not surprise. No. Frustration. Like I had interrupted something he already saw finished. And right then, I knew. This wasn't grief. This wasn't concern. This was a plan. A careful one. And it had been sitting in him longer than I wanted to believe. He said, Mama, you're being emotional. I said, I'm sitting in my house, and my son is asking me to hand it over. What would you prefer I be? He tried to soften it. Changed his tone. Said I misunderstood. Said it was standard. Said he was just looking out for me. I let him talk. I didn't argue. I just let him run out of words. Then I stood up, took our coffee cups to the sink, and said, we can talk about something else, or you can go back to Chicago. He stayed the weekend. We talked about safe things. He hugged me when he left. Told me he loved me. And I told him I loved him too. Because I did. But something had cracked. Not broken all the way, but deep enough that I could feel it. And I knew it wasn't going to heal easy. I called Denise that night. Told her everything. She cried. Tried to hide it, but I heard it. Mama, I'm so sorry. I told her, don't be sorry. I see clearly now. Next morning, I called Howard. Now listen close, because this part right here, this is where it gets real complicated. Kevin came by a few days later. Same as always. Let himself in. Went straight to the kitchen. Eating crackers out the box like he still lived there. For a moment, it felt normal. Like any other Tuesday. He came and sat next to me. Started folding laundry with me without saying a word. Then he said, "Mama. Marcus called me." I kept folding. He said y'all talked about the house. We did. Kevin hesitated. He said, "You might be struggling." Said grief might be affecting your judgment. I stopped. Set the sheet down. Looked at my son. "Kevin, look at me. Do I look like I don't know what I'm doing?" He looked at me long and steady. Then he said, "No, ma'am. You look like my mama." I nodded. "Your brother brought papers. I didn't sign them." Kevin went quiet. Then he said something low, almost like it hurt to say it. He told me, if you signed, he'd use his share to pay off my car, clear my credit cards. The room went still. I heard everything in that sentence. The offer. The temptation. And the shame wrapped around it. I took his hand. Held it tight. "Baby, your brother can't give you what ain't his." He said, "I didn't say yes. I need you to know that." "I know," I told him. "I know who you are." And I did. But I also knew something else. Marcus had looked at his younger brother's struggles and tried to use them. Tried to turn my own child into leverage against me. That kind of hurt. It don't come clean. It spreads. Through everything. That night, I sat in Robert's chair. Put my hand right where his used to rest. And I said out loud, "Robert, our boy is trying to take our house." And then I just sat there. Didn't plan. Didn't strategize. I just felt it. Because underneath anger is grief. Grief for who you thought they were. Grief for the family you believed in. Grief for the life that was supposed to keep going a certain way. I let myself feel all of that. By myself. The way I always have. And then the next morning, I got up. Made my coffee. Picked up that phone. And got to work. Because if Marcus Washington thought his mother was going to sit still and let him circle her like she was something to be claimed, then baby, he never really knew who raised him. Baby, let me tell you about Howard Briggs. Now Howard had been our family's lawyer since 1995. Small man, always neat, always precise. He had these reading glasses he was forever losing and finding again, like they were playing hide and seek with him. And every time he was about to say something important, he'd tap his pen 3 times on his legal pad. Tap. 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 Like he was knocking before stepping into something serious. Robert trusted that man completely. And anything Robert trusted like that, I didn't question. I sat in Howard's office one Wednesday morning in late March, and I told him everything. The phone calls. The folder. Those percentages. What Marcus said to Kevin. I didn't dress it up. Didn't soften it. Just laid it out plain. Howard listened, didn't interrupt me once. When I finished, he took off his glasses, set them down real careful, picked up that pen. Tap. 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 He looked at me and said, "Has anyone talked to you about Robert's will?" I said, "What do you mean?" He leaned forward just a little. "Has Marcus asked you directly what's in it?" I sat there and thought about it. Marcus had talked around everything. The house, the value, the planning, but he never once asked me straight what Robert left behind. Howard opened the file. Set it right there between us. And baby. Robert had been clear. That house on Elm Street. It was mine. Fully mine. As long as I was living. And after I was gone, it was to be split evenly. 1/3. 1/3. 1/3. Equal. Robert had insisted on that word. Equal. That man believed in fairness the way some folks believe in scripture. It lived in his bones. I sat there looking at that paper, then I asked Howard something that had been sitting heavy on me. What would have happened if I signed those papers Marcus brought me? Howard tapped that pen again. Tap. 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 He said, depending on the structure, you could have signed away your authority over the house. As trustee, Marcus would have had control. In certain cases, he could have sold it. Or leveraged it. And your ability to challenge it later would have been very limited. The room got quiet. I said, he knew that. Howard paused. I can't speak to what Marcus knew. I can only tell you what those documents would have done. But I could speak on it. My son had an MBA. Worked in finance. He understood every line in that folder better than I ever would. And still, he sat at my table, for months after his father died, and told me it was for my protection. Baby. I've searched for a word for that. There isn't one that feels big enough. Howard tightened everything up that same week. Updated my documents. Made every line clear, every protection solid. Then he sent a letter to that woman. Carla Green. Professional. Polite. But firm. Letting her know I had legal representation and any future conversations needed to come through him. After that? Marcus went quiet. 3 weeks. Now those 3 weeks, they were strange. Not peaceful. Just still. Like the air before a storm decides to move in. Denise kept coming by. Kevin too. Church folks stayed close. I went back to my routines, morning walks, Bible study, lunch with Gloria. I even got back out in my garden. The weather was warming up, and those roses started coming in. Red and strong, just like my mama used to like them. I'd be out there talking to them sometimes. I remember my mama saying, plants grow better when you speak to them. I believe that. I believe most living things do. But even with all that, my mind kept going back to Marcus. You know how you keep pressing on a bruise, even though you know it's tender? That's how it was. I'd think about him as a baby. As that serious little boy at the kitchen table. The one who studied so hard you could almost feel it in the room. I'd think about his graduation, how Robert cried watching him walk across that stage. And then I'd see that folder again. And I'd ask myself something I didn't have an answer for. Where did we go wrong? Was it something we did? Something we didn't do? Did success change him? Or was that part of him always there, just waiting for the right moment to show itself? I don't know. And I had to learn to let that question go, because some answers don't heal you. They just keep you hurting. Marcus called again in late April. Sunday evening. Like always. Like nothing had happened. But his voice, it was different. Careful. Measured. He said, Mama, I want to apologize for how I handled the conversation about the house. The timing wasn't right. I listened. He said, I still think the concern is valid. I worry about you managing everything alone. But I understand you're not ready to deal with it. Not ready. You hear that? Like my no was temporary. Like I just needed time to come around. I said, Marcus, listen to me. Not right now. Not later. Not ever. I am not changing anything about that house. I am not signing anything without my lawyer. And I am not going to be managed. Do you understand me? There was a long silence. Then he said, Mama. I think you've been talking to Denise. I said, I talk to my daughter every week. He started to say something else. Marcus, I said, don't finish that sentence. And he didn't. We talked a little longer, but it was surface talk. Careful talk. When we hung up, I sat there for a long time. Because I saw what he was doing. He had changed tactics. Couldn't come at me directly anymore, so now he was trying to shift things. Make it seem like I was being influenced. Divide the ground under my feet. Baby. I know how people move. What I didn't know yet was how far he'd already gone. That part came from Gloria. Now Gloria, she's one of those women who knows things without it being gossip. Just connections. People who know people. We were at lunch one day in May. She set her fork down real slow and said, Eat something first. I looked at her and said, just say it. She said, Patricia Weston's nephew works at a title company downtown. He processed an inquiry last month, on a property. I already knew. Elm Street? I said. She nodded. Not a sale, she said. Just an inquiry. Title status, liens, that kind of thing. Somebody had already been looking into my house. While I was still living in it. While Robert hadn't even been gone half a year. I said, who? She hesitated. Said it came through an attorney's office. Carla. Green, I finished. Gloria just closed her eyes. I sat there in that restaurant, calm on the outside. But inside? Something turned. All the way. Because now I could see it clearly. The phone calls. The concern. The folder. That wasn't the beginning. That was already the middle. He had started this before he ever sat down at my table. Already had people looking into my house. Already had something in motion. I went home. Sat in my driveway. Looked at my house. The cream walls. The green shutters. Those red roses pushing up along the walkway. And I said it out loud. Robert. I am not losing this house. I called Howard. Told him everything. He got quiet, then said, I need to ask you something honestly. Is there any part of you that thinks this could be a misunderstanding? And I thought about that. Really thought about it. Then I said, Howard, my son tried to get me to sign away control of my home. He tried to use his brother's debt against me. And now there's a title inquiry on my property from his attorney. What part of that sounds like a misunderstanding? He was quiet. Then he said, none of it. He told me to document everything. Anything Marcus said. Anything Kevin remembered. So I called Kevin. Told him what I'd learned. He went quiet, then said, Mama, how long you been planning this? I said, longer than we want to know. He asked me what I needed. I said, write it all down. Everything he told you. Send it to me. He said, done. Then, real soft. I'm sorry, Mama. I said, you told me the truth. That's what matters. And it did. Because Kevin, he couldn't carry something like that and keep looking me in the eye. That's how I knew his heart was still right. By June, the roses were in full bloom. I stood on that porch one morning, looking at them, thinking about my mama. Red roses mean you're serious about where you planted yourself. I said, Mama. I'm still here. Marcus kept calling. Still careful. Still polite. But he stopped mentioning the house. And baby, when somebody stops talking about something like that don't mean they stopped thinking about it. One afternoon, Denise and I sat on the porch together. Sweet tea in our hands. Sun coming through that old oak tree. She said, Mama, you think he really thought you'd sign it? I thought about it. Then I said, I think he thought I was a grieving old woman who'd be grateful her successful son was handling things. Denise shook her head. I looked out at those roses and said, he forgot who raised him. She smiled a little. Yeah, he did. We sat there in the quiet. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to steady. Not peace, not yet. But strength. Because Marcus knew the value of that house. He knew the number. But he didn't understand what it was worth. That house held 35 years of love. Of sacrifice. Of faithfulness. It held Robert. It held me. It held everything we built. And I knew one thing for certain. Whatever he had planned next, I was ready for it. Baby. I used to believe that if you just held on long enough, everything would find its way back. That if you stayed strong, stayed faithful, kept doing right no matter what came your way, then one day, the storm would pass. The sky would clear. And you'd be standing in something that looked like before. Maybe a little worn down, maybe a little different. But still whole. I don't believe that anymore. No, baby. What I know now, after all these years, after everything that happened in that house, is that things don't go back. They go forward. Resolution don't look like restoration. It looks like continuation. It looks like you, still standing, in a life that has been changed in ways you didn't ask for, waking up every day and choosing to keep going anyway. To keep tending. To keep planting. Even when the person who first taught you how ain't here to see it. That year after everything came to light, it was quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Just the kind of quiet that comes after a hard rain. The ground still heavy underneath your feet, even though the sky done cleared. Marcus didn't come home for Thanksgiving that year. He sent a card. A real one. Handwritten. I remember holding it in my hands, recognizing his handwriting the same way I recognized the sound of my own name. He said he was sorry. Said he hoped that, in time, things might find their way to something better. It wasn't long. Wasn't perfect. But it was real. And I put it on the mantle. Not because it fixed anything. But because in the middle of all that calculation, that plan, that careful thinking, that card felt honest. And sometimes, baby, you hold on to even the smallest piece of honesty. Thanksgiving still happened. Denise and Gerald came with the babies. Kevin came with a woman named Patrice, sweet girl, warm spirit, looked at him like he mattered. That alone made my heart settle a little. We filled that house again. Food cooking. Laughter bouncing off the walls. Little feet running through the hallway like the place remembered what it was built for. I set a place for Robert. I always do. I always will. After dinner, when things got quiet, the three of us sat at the kitchen table, just like we used to. Kevin looked at me and said, Mama, are you okay? Really okay? And I thought about it. I said, I'm okay. I'm not the same, but I'm okay. Denise asked, do you think Marcus understands what he did? I sat with that. Then I said, I think he understands more than he admits. But whether he truly faces it, that's between him and God. I can't walk that road for him. And baby, that right there, that's something I had to learn the hard way. You cannot live somebody else's reckoning for them. Kevin said, "You think Daddy knew? About Marcus?" That question. It sat heavy on that table. Because I had asked myself that same thing, more nights than I can count. I said, "Your father saw people clearly. But he also believed in giving them the chance to be better than their worst." I paused. "I think your daddy knew exactly who Marcus was, and chose to love him anyway." Kevin looked down at his hands. I said, "That kind of love, it costs you." And we just sat there in it. The warmth of the kitchen, the quiet, the space where something had been broken, but not completely lost. Spring came again. And one Sunday evening, Marcus called. Same as always. But not the same. He didn't ask about documents. Didn't talk about plans. He asked about the roses. Asked about the oak tree. I told him the roses were coming in, just starting to bloom. He said, "I remember climbing that tree." I said, "You fell out once." Cried for about 30 seconds, then climbed right back up. He said, "I don't remember crying." I said, "You wouldn't." And baby, there was something in that moment. Small. Fragile. But real. Like a little flame you cup your hand around so the wind don't take it. Then he said, "Mama, I'd like to come home. If you'd have me." I was quiet. Then I said, "This will always be your home. And I will always be your mother." He said, "Even after everything?" I said, "Even after everything." And I meant that. Because a mother's love, it don't depend on worthiness. It just continues. Sometimes with boundaries. Sometimes with clearer eyes. But it continues. He came home that summer. Stayed 3 days. And baby, he was different. Not polished. Not performing. Just quiet. The real kind. Like a man who had been sitting with himself and didn't like everything he found there. On his last evening, we sat on the porch together. The light was soft, that golden kind that makes everything look gentle. He said, "Mama, did you ever think about walking away from me?" I looked at him. I said, "Every time you treated this family like something to own instead of something to belong to, my heart broke a little." He nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't defend. Just listened. I said, "But walk away from my own child?" "Baby, I've seen real loss. I'm not going to create more of it if I don't have to." He turned to me then. And for the first time in a long time, I saw my boy. Not the man with the plan. Not the one with the folder. My boy. He said, "I'm sorry, Mama. For all of it. Not part of it. All of it." I put my hand on his. "I know you are. Now listen, that moment didn't fix everything. Life don't work like that. Trust ain't rebuilt in a conversation. It's rebuilt in days. In choices. In whether somebody shows up different over time. Marcus and I, we're not what we used to be. But we are something. And sometimes, something is worth tending." About a year later, Howard called me. Said that woman, Carla Green, had lost her license. Not because of me. Because of somebody else. Another elderly woman. Another situation that looked a whole lot like mine. Pattern. That's what they found. A pattern. And baby, when something is built wrong, it don't stand. It collapses under its own weight. Marcus didn't face charges. But his name was there. In those papers. Attached to something that wasn't right. I never asked him about it. But I saw the change in him. That kind of thing, it humbles you. In a way no courtroom ever could. Kevin married Patrice that fall. Beautiful wedding. Lights in the trees. Laughter in the air. I danced. Lord. I danced like I hadn't danced in years. And for a moment, I felt Robert. Right there with me. Kevin came over, took my hands like he used to when he was little. Mama, are you happy? I said, right now. I am completely happy. And I was. Because listen to me. Joy and grief? They don't cancel each other out. They live together. Always. Miss Ida, Robert's mama, used to say something. She'd say, what's done in the dark will come to the light. And what's built in the light will stand in the dark. I didn't understand that when I was younger. I do now. Everything Marcus tried to build in the dark, it fell apart. Every piece of it. But what Robert and I built? That stood. Through sickness. Through grief. Through betrayal. Through all of it. That house on Elm Street is still mine. The roses still bloom every June. Red and full. The oak tree still stands. Stronger, if anything. Deeper roots. I sit on that porch in the evenings. Sometimes I talk to Robert. Sometimes I just sit. And that's enough. Denise still comes every Sunday. Kevin calls every day. Sometimes twice now, since he named that baby girl Dorothy. Told him he didn't have to do that. Then cried for 20 minutes after I hung up. Marcus calls too. Not as often. But when he does, there's something in his voice. Something softer. Like a man trying to find his way back. I don't know if he will. That's his journey. I've already walked mine. So listen to me, baby, this is what I want you to carry with you. You are going to be hurt in this life. Especially if you love deeply. And some of that hurt, it's going to come from people you never thought would be the ones to do it. They'll know your soft places. Because you showed them. And sometimes, they'll use that. And it will break your heart in ways you don't have words for. But hear me. That does not mean you were wrong to love. It does not mean your love was wasted. It does not mean you should have hardened yourself or held back. Sometimes, people just aren't at the level of love you gave them. And that's their poverty. Not yours. Robert loved his family with everything he had. And that love? It wasn't wasted. It built something that's still standing. It built Denise. It built Kevin. It built a house that held us through everything. And it even built a man, still trying to find his way back. That love mattered. And so does yours. The measure of your life ain't whether you avoided pain. You won't. None of us do. The measure is whether you kept showing up. Whether you kept planting, even when you didn't know if anything would grow. Whether you held onto your dignity, your clarity, your worth. Even when somebody tried to take it from you. So if you ever find yourself sitting at a table, with a folder pushed toward you, and something in your spirit says, this ain't right. Baby. You listen. You push it back. And you stand your ground. My name is Dorothy Mae Washington. I live in a house on Elm Street. Cream walls. Green shutters. Red roses out front. Oak tree out back. My husband built it. I protected it. And after everything, I'm still here, baby. I'm still here.